This is Aussie Mac Zone. We'll cover everything Apple, including Macs, iPhones, iPads, and more. All this from an Aussie perspective. Sit back, relax, and insert yourself into the zone. The Aussie Mac Zone.
Hi everybody, welcome to show 280 Aussie Mac Zone. And welcome Zarn, how are you?
Good, thanks Michael. How are you, mate?
Very good, thanks. Sorry to everyone that we're a couple of days late, but we're rocking on, so all good. Everything's cool. We are brought to you by IT Help to You and Aussie Tech Heads Podcasting. So our little Aussie Apple ramblings this week. So there was a new TV ad, and I think I saw it Sunday night, and it's pushing security, talking about privacy matters. You can see it. You can go to YouTube. There's a link in the show notes. And as of, I saw it Sunday night, and it had already had 837,000 views as of 12:30 Monday.
Yes.
and it talks about privacy and it shows little pictures, and even the Apple logo at the end has a little lock on it. So yeah, it's worth taking a look at. And there is as I said, a link in the show notes. It'll take you directly to Apple's YouTube site. Now here's one that's pretty big. Apple scraps plans for controversial flagship store in Melbourne. So from Apple News, courtesy of Cult of Mac, Apple has scrapped a controversial plan to build a flagship store in Melbourne in Australia's Federation Square. Apple had been battling to build the store for much of last year. It even scrapped its original designs and came up with new ones, only to have those criticised as well. Government agent Heritage Victoria ruled that the Apple store would be too visually dominant. It also said that demolishing the existing Yarra building to construct Apple's flagship store would diminish the public space. The decision to deny Apple permission to build the Apple store came on the back of vehement opposition to Apple's plans. An Apple spokesperson has confirmed that Apple will no longer pursue the plans, and it's not clear if it will try to find another space nearby. So, yes.
So, from what I read,
yep.
From what I read, they said that they may try to find, or might not try to find, they're not sure, a space nearby, but they will be building a flagship store here in Australia.
Yeah.
And on the East Coast, New South Wales, Canberra, Melbourne, somewhere. So, if Melbourne doesn't want it, maybe Sydney does. They seem to be giving away property pretty easily these days. So, ask Gladys, I'm sure she can help you out. Maybe we could put it where we can knock down a stadium and build one for her.
Yeah, yes, so, that'd be good. The Apple Stadium.
That's right, Apple Stadium. Oh, sounds fantastic. There you go.
You can have Apple Arcade games there.
Yes. They have big. They could see that. They could have just big screens in there and everything like that. Imagine doing it on one of the Trinitrons, whatever they're called, that they use for to do the footy and all that sort of stuff. That'd be great fun. It's like when Nintendo first released, it was a Mario Brothers on GameCube, I think it was.
Yeah,
I remember.
Yeah.
They did it at it's now been knocked down, but it was the IMAX theatre in Darling Harbour.
Yeah.
And you could go in and select a few and play Mario Brothers on the big screen there. So 4 stories of Mario. That'd be fantastic. So imagine that, Apple Stadium, and you can go and do that.
I'm surprised you ever came home from there.
I did camp out. So yeah.
No, it's there are other places nearby there that they could build it. There is there are a couple of places along there. Maybe they do what they did in I think it was in New York. They built a store at the railway station. So they got the railway station across the road from Federation Square.
Yep.
Yeah, pretty popular one. So Yeah, as long as they leave the pub diagonally opposite Federation Square, I'm happy. And even the church, there's a church opposite Federation Square. That's where Peter Brock had his. Peter Brock, I'm pretty sure it was Peter Brock had his state funeral. So I'm sure that maybe that's the church they use for state funerals, like they like in Sydney.
I think I know what you're talking about. Was it Michael Hutchins' funeral there as well?
Quite possibly, yeah. So,
if anybody knows the answer to that question, just message us or something. Whether Peter Brock and Michael Hutchins had their funeral at the same state
same church. Yeah. Now, college students allegedly scammed Apple out of nearly $1 million in iPhone replacement. This is so 2 Chinese engineering students in Oregon allegedly scammed Apple out of hundreds of thousands of dollars in iPhone replacements and are now facing criminal charges in federal court. As was first reported in the Oregon, authorities allege the students pulled off a convoluted scheme in order to wring Apple out of the cash by using counterfeit devices and exploiting Apple's return policy. So beginning in 2017, the 2 men allegedly smuggled thousands of counterfeit iPhones into the US from China and then sent them in for Apple to repair or replace, claiming the knockoffs wouldn't power on. In many cases, Apple did replace the counterfeit goods with real iPhones, which cost the company an estimated $895,800. So
that's not $1 million, then, is it?
No, not quite, but it goes on. Yeah. So Yang Zhao, who just completed his engineering degree at Oregon State University, was allegedly responsible for getting the counterfeit shipments into the US and for sending off the real iPhones back to China. His accomplice, Kwong Jiang, who studied engineering at Lynn Benton Community College, shared an address with Zhao and would bring in the counterfeit phones to Apple either online or in person to request replacements. After the real iPhones were mailed to China to be sold for profit, an associate would wire the money to Jiang's mother, who then deposited the funds into an account Jiang used in the US the complaint explains. Now, Jiang allegedly submitted 3,069 warranty claims, and Apple granted 1,493 replacement phones as a result.
How? I don't understand.
Yeah. Now, at the estimated value of $600 per phone, Apple lost nearly $900,000, which were around in June and July of 2017.
Yep.
Apple sent Jiang, so that's in 2 months, right? June and July.
Yeah.
Apple sent Jiang cease and desist orders to Zhao's listed address, notifying Jiang that Apple knew he was importing fake phones, but Jiang did not respond to the notice. So the duo are not alone in allegedly trying to profit off large tech companies. Last year, a Chinese national living in New Jersey on a student visa pleaded guilty to selling fake iPhones and iPads to customers, pocketing nearly $1.1 million in sales revenue from the scheme.
So that I understand.
Yeah. So
he's not taking them back and getting them replaced. These are all in. If it's not stating, look, I could be wrong here. I understand, but it's not stating if they use different names or anything like that. You know, but they're all going to the same address or a PO box or something like that.
Yeah, they're going to the same address or to the same. Like, it's amazing. If you base it, and yes, some of them would just mail in.
Yep.
So he'd bring up and say, my iPhone's not turning on.
Yep.
Because they can't turn on, they can't actually check. Previously, they couldn't check the serial number at all.
Yes.
Because they wouldn't turn on. And so therefore they'd send them in, couldn't turn them on. Quote, you have to trust the customer.
Yep.
They'd send him a new one. He'd get rid of it back. Now, he might have been using different names, but it was still going to the same address.
Exactly. How did it take them?
Like 1,500 in 2 months.
No, but that's how many they returned. He put in 3,000.
Yeah.
They gave him half back. In 2 months. How
Yeah.
many phones is this dude using? Why does he have so many phones? After 4, wouldn't a red light come on?
Not really.
Unless he's sending them to different stores, or I don't know.
Well, he might have been going to 3 or 4 different stores, but as I worked out, when I first read it, I forgot that it was in 2 months. I was working at it a year.
Yeah.
So that's still more than 3 a day for a year. So, you know.
Yeah.
But in 2 months, that's like, how many is that? Like 60 a day.
So that means he either had to have been an authorised repairer.
Nah.
Then how? How's he sending in 60 phones?
It's just taking I don't know. Don't know how he gets away with it. Don't know how you get 60 phones a day.
I don't understand how Apple can win this complaint. I don't understand how they can win. They were stupid enough to let this happen. The first box you get, if it's 3,000 in 2 months, the first box of phones you get should be a red light.
Yes, you'd think so, yeah.
Yes.
So, now, remember, we are brought to you this week by IT Help to You. Now, one of the biggest things I've had this week is doing some data recoveries on new machines. It is no easy feat. So please, 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 everybody, back up. I hate doing these data recoveries. So it's no easy feat, and it's not like the old days where you could take it to data recovery companies, for example, because you've actually, I don't know that I'm allowed to say this, but you've actually got to order a spare part from Apple, which they don't deliver. It's actually a data recovery. That's the only way that you possibly can get your data out.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's not easy anymore to do data recovery. On the way home tonight, they were talking about a couple that had just been overseas from Canada, been overseas for like 4 months touring Europe and Greece and all that sort of stuff. And then basically as they got home, they dropped their phone in the water, had all their photos, hadn't done any backup. They went to Apple. Apple said, there's nothing we can do. And they finally found someone in New York, a girl, a female, I'm proud to say, in New York, who got all their photos and stuff back. And the way she did it was by changing some components on the phone, putting the logic board of the phone into another case.
Yep.
Just enough to get the photos out.
Wow.
Right? Did all of that. Now that might have cost $1,000. I don't know how much it cost. But they were never, this is like, we're talking all of their holiday snaps.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I understand. I've had a friend with a similar thing a while back now.
Yeah.
But she had an iBook.
Yeah.
And and same thing, Mac. Yeah, it was a MacBook Pro. It might have been a MacBook Pro. I can't remember.
Yeah.
That was her life. She was living in Sydney, but she came from Perth. Moved over here, had all the family photos on the thing and everything like that, and had backed up here and there, but she got a little bit lazy with it. It crashed, and
you have to be anal. You have to be anal. Do the backup. Set a calendar an event. Be anal. Do the backup once a week. If you're prepared to lose a week's worth of stuff, a week's worth of photos, whatever, back it up.
Yep.
I've got photos off a guy's iPad. He dropped it off like a 6-story building in Surfers Paradise the day they were leaving.
Yep.
After he'd been there for a week or 2 week holiday with his family, had all of these photos on there. That's all they were interested in getting back. Gave it to a guy who did it, but there's no guarantee that can happen.
Yep.
You know, it only takes one of those storage chips to be damaged, and you just can't get them. You know.
Yep.
But yeah, so he was lucky; he got his pictures back. So yeah, very important. Please back up. Please, please, please back up. Now, story number 4. Apple News Plus blows by texture in just 48 hours. So Apple News Plus, the subscription magazine and news service that was revealed last week, is already more popular than the service app based it on, Texture. So Apple bought Texture last year sometime,
Yep.
and which was a subscription app for magazines.
Yep.
Now, within the first 48 hours of being available, Apple News Plus amassed more than 200,000 paid subscribers. Well, they're not paid yet because first month's free.
That's right, but they've put in their details and
Yep.
they're trying their first month.
Yeah, and if in 3 weeks' time they decide they don't like it, so that's more than Texture had at its peak. The New York Times revealed the figures in a recent report, though Apple hasn't commented on if they're legit. Now, the Times says Texture's current subscriber numbers aren't counted towards Apple's subscriber numbers, even though Apple will shut down Texture next month as a separate app.
Yep.
Apple News Plus offers subscribers access to 300 magazines a month, as well as news articles from sites that have their content behind a paywall. Now, the service has prompted some people to ask where it's time to cancel subscriptions to favourite magazines that Apple are carried by Apple News Plus, sorry. Now, remember, it is currently, right now, only available in the US and Canada, and it is coming to Europe and Australia in a few months, I believe. So
are we getting that around the same time as everything else? So we're going to get that around spring? Is that right?
It more depends on when they tie up, like Australian magazines and newspapers, more than the app, because the app's just the Apple News app with an update, so that there's Apple News Plus as a tab down the bottom, which we haven't got. So I think it's more a legal thing of having magazines, Australian magazines, Australian Rugby League, Australian Rugby Union, the AFL magazine.
Yep.
Auto Action, that sort of thing.
Yep. Hopefully there'll be no Murdoch Media.
Now, Zarn.
Yes.
Apple Arcade. So
yes.
three more to talk about.
Yeah, let's say three.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Okay, let's go.
So, where am I? Let me just have a look here. Oops. All right. So the first one I want to talk about is called "Not My Car."
Yeah.
Now, this Not My Car is a battle royale similar to Fortnite or PUBG. Steam are running a beta at the moment, and hopefully, that all goes well. And if it does, you can play Fortnite and stuff like that on Apple now. So I'm guessing that'll go to the arcade with PUBG and stuff like that. And so what I'm hoping is this will go, because it's everything you love about PUBG or Fortnite, but in a car. So you're armed up, you're ready to go, you're fighting, you're battling, you got to drive around in cars that you build yourself online, and the weapons you put on them, you got to pick them up, everything like that, and chase each other around and blow each other up, and do cool jumps. It sounds a lot more fun to me. I like car games, especially those sorts of car games. There used to be one, I think on the PS2, I think it was. I can't remember the name of it even now. I think, what was it? It was probably called Carnage or something like that, if I remember correctly. And it was the same thing. You have weapons, you fight, but this is online, completely online. And I'm hoping that it drops when arcade drops, and it looks like one of those games that will. So fingers crossed, we'll get it on Apple Arcade. That was just something I found during the week that I wanted to talk about. That game. The other game I want to talk about is one that we've all had for a while, which is Pokemon Go. And this week I've been noticing some glitching happening. It's been slowing down. It's been dropping out. I've kicked off a few times, and I'm also on the Sydney page, the Pokemon Go Sydney page, on Facebook, and asked if this is happening to other people. I haven't checked the replies yet. Unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to. So I'm wondering if that is a sort of a nationwide thing that's going on. And the third one I'm going to talk about tonight is, if I can find it, just bear with me because I'm reading from my phone, people, because that's how professional I always am. I'm well prepared. There we go. Is this what I'm looking for? Hopefully this is what I'm looking for. I could be wrong. Bear with me, it's loading. Okay. Oh no, that's the wrong one. Damn it.
So when's just going back to the Pokemon one? When's the
here we go.
The Wizards one due? When's that due? It must be close. The Harry Potter, what's Pokemon's company? Niantic.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're bringing out a Harry Potter one.
Yes.
That everybody's waiting for.
Yeah, I don't know the drop date yet. I will find that out hopefully this week.
Yeah, I know there's a couple of people doing tests on, doing beta testing on it already.
Yeah.
A couple of reporters and stuff. So.
Oh, that's awesome. I'll have to look that up this week. Where am I? Jesus, come on. Oh, here we go. Well, that's not the one. Where is it? Did I talk about that one? Did I talk about Overlander last week, Michael?
Oh, I don't know. I can look it up for you.
So this Overlander is a post-apocalypse road trip game, but it changes. So each time you go into the game, it's different.
Yeah. I'm just looking up last week's show notes. That's how I'm getting there.
Yeah.
Yonder Steel Sky, Fantasian, and Lifelike.
Excellent.
Last week?
Yes. Overland. It's a turn-based game. So you take a turn, I take a turn, you take a turn, I take a turn. It's post-apocalyptic road trip. And so you... Else is... Oh, sorry. Let's drop it. Oh, hang on. I've got to find it again. I'm hopeless at this. I apologise, everyone. So, when I watched the video last week, it's a turn-based game, but each time you come into the game, you're in it. It's changed. So the post-apocalyptic time has changed. There's different scenarios now that you get to play, and so it plays out differently each time you play the game.
Yep.
Which is awesome. I really like that idea. Like you coming in and say, so maybe last time you got in there and you were in a certain place and this is what happened. When you get back in there, you try to beat that again, but it's not going to happen the same way. So it's a different strategy. Now I've got to realise that it's a different strategy. Okay, I can't do it this way anymore. I'm going to have to try something new. And it really makes you think and get your brain ticking, which is excellent because a lot of games are, numbing. Just like... well, I probably shouldn't say that, so I won't. It's the same thing over and over and over again, and I'm bored with it. I like games that are different, so I like this one. Yeah, and then the 3 games.
Good. Yep. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
How to update the firmware on your AirPods? So you can't. You can, however, check which version they are running. Now, iMore tells us Apple has released a new firmware version for the first generation AirPods, updating them from 3.7.2 to version 6.3.2. That's a big update, isn't it?
Yep.
The company doesn't currently offer a list of changes present in the firmware. It also doesn't currently provide a way to manually update the firmware on AirPods, opting instead for an automatic update process. But Apple won't just install a firmware update willy-nilly. If your iPods died mid-update, it would cause all sorts of problems. So, pardon me, you'll need to make sure of the following. Your AirPods must be in the charging case. The charging case must be plugged in and charging. An iOS device that's been connected to your AirPods must be nearby. And I believe well charged as well. And now, once all of these conditions are met, the firmware update should automatically begin at some point. Yeah, it's that vague, the way that Apple have described it, apparently. So now, while you can't trigger a firmware update with a button press or a tap, you can check what firmware version your AirPods are running and view some other interesting information about the wireless earbuds. Here's how. To check your AirPods firmware, make sure your AirPods are connected to your iOS device, open the charging case or put your AirPods in your ears, launch the setting app on iOS, tap General, tap About, scroll down and tap AirPods, and check the number next to the firmware version, pardon me, to see what firmware version your iPods are running. And if your firmware version sends something other than lesser than 6.3.2, your AirPods need an update. Put them in their case, plug them in, place your phone nearby, and keep your fingers crossed for that automatic update. So, excellent. Now, this week we are brought to you by Aussie Tech Heads Podcasting. So don't forget, we have talked about it. They do Aussie Tech Heads podcast, an award-winning podcast. They do Aussie Max Zone podcast. They do Aussie Tech Radio, which is 24/7 non-stop Australian podcast. For example, Aussie Tech Heads, Aussie Max Zone, Two Blokes Talking Tech, Your Tech Life with Trevor Long, Vertical Hold, Apple Slice, Let's Talk Leadership with Des Walsh, Geeks Interrupted. There's a Minecraft podcast as well. So, yeah, Aussie Tech Heads Podcasting and AussieTechRadio.com. And if you think about having a podcast and you want some help, look us up.
That's it.
We're here to help.
Absolutely.
Now, Apple launches iOS 12.2 with fixes for over 50 major security issues. From Apple News, courtesy of the Daily Mail, iOS 12.2 fixes a critical bug that let bad apps use your microphone to eavesdrop. Among the other 50 bugs fixed include memory corruption issues in WebKit. Now, the update also comes with new features like Apple News Plus in the US and Canada, and new animojis for the animoji people between us. So, yeah.
What animojis? Do you know what animojis they're coming out with?
Nah, because I don't do it. So,
fair enough.
Yeah, I've never sat down and done it. So, to be honest, yeah. Now, the Google AI expert jumped ship for Apple. So, one of Google's top AI experts, artificial intelligence, has left the company to join Apple's Special Projects Group. Ian Goodfellow, who created an AI approach called General Adversarial Networks, or GANs, was hired by Apple as a director of machine learning, adding another prominent Google AI expert to its growing teams. Apple has been doubling down on its focus of AI recently as it applies more of its major and minor products like Siri, Face ID, and even self-driving cars. John Giandrea, Google's former head of AI jumped ship to Apple last year to oversee the company's efforts. So I wonder if he had a bit of influence on Mr. Goodfellow.
More than likely.
Now, before Google, Goodfellow worked at OpenAI, an AI firm funded by Elon Musk. Peter Thiel, Reid Hoffman, and other top tech figures. Goodfellow's GANs approach is widely cited in AI literature. It uses two networks, one generative network and one discriminative network, that are used to create audio, video, and text with minimal input. So basically, when they're doing testing stuff, you have one arguing with the other, and they just
for Elon Musk as well.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
So
because we've had some of his guys come over as well.
Yeah, so that's right. So yeah, AI big at Apple, and just keep cruising along. Obviously, things are happening, even though they don't tell us about it. Because some of these guys are like, they do publish information that tech people don't normally see, because it's published in, how do you put it, like special trade type papers that they publish and give talks at, it's, you know, when they go and talk at a university and things like that. So we've got an Apple shares the new Underdogs video focusing on Apple products at work. This was another good one. This one goes for a while, and we do have a link to it. Now it features show off include continuity camera for scanning a document from an iPhone right to a Mac, group FaceTime, Hey Siri, AirDrop, iPad multitasking, and more. So we do have a link to it. This one goes for about 3 minutes, I want to say.
Yep.
And it's a light-hearted look, but it's very good at the way it gets the information across, I think. And it's basically about a group of people who the head of that little group finally gets a meeting with the boss, and they've agreed to show something off to the boss, who's and how they achieve that in this short amount of time using all these little Apple products, hardware and software.
Awesome.
So yeah, it's definitely worth a look. Anything else, young Zarn?
Nothing from me, Michael.
No. So yeah, it's that sort of funny time of the year. We're sort of stuck between what Apple announced a couple of weeks ago and the Worldwide Developers Conference in the end of June. I want to say it's the end of June.
Yep.
Yeah, so we're sort of stuck. So we've got to keep digging for news. That's the challenge.
Well, there is lots of news out there, like we said. Like there is, you know, we're waiting for stuff to drop and everything like that, and that's the problem. Like, so yeah.
Yeah,
we've got to be sneaky.
So don't forget, our show notes are each week in a link. And on however you get your normal podcast, there's usually a link in there for the show notes.
Yep.
And go to our AussieMaxZone.com.au website, and you can click on there and get the latest show. You can also get the show notes, which is how I just looked something up a minute ago.
Yep.
Don't forget, you can do a Spotify search for Aussie Max Zone. Very, very special thanks to our sponsors this week, being Aussie Tech Heads Podcasting and IT Help to You. And very important, thank you to our supporters, you, our listeners. And over to you, Zarn.
Yes. Thanks, everyone. And remember, Apple Day keeps the Androids away. Back to you, Michael.
Bang. Thank you, everybody.